Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. I've got a great idea, Thomas. You know, all of this YouTube stuff, you know, they're isolating and taking us down one by one on YouTube, right? You know about that?
Oh, yes, it's horrible.
Okay, I think we're going to do some camouflage. Now listen here, because this is our regular audience. You got to pay attention. Whenever we have something that we want to tell you that is really a no-no for YouTube, we're going to camouflage it. We're going to put pictures of kitties on our videos, because who doesn't like kitties? And we know that that's the number one thing they research on YouTube, okay? That's what we're going to do.
Could you put like one or two or three kitties in the corner to determine just how bad it is? So if there's like a whole group of kitties in the corner, it's just a mess and it should probably be banned. Is that kind of thing?
Okay, that's it. Okay, we're going to work with a kitty motif.
I'm all about kitties. I mean,
I know you are.
You are not kidding, you know, when sometimes you make the joke that that's what I use YouTube for. The only thing I watch on YouTube are kitty movies because I think they're the most adorable things ever. But remember, we shrunk those little guys down. If they were full size, they'd eat us. Don't forget that.
That's right. Well, now, we're not on here to talk about kitties, but that's our new method for a while. You have some important things to tell us, Thomas.
Well, Betsy, I'm all bouncing all around here. I don't know. You're going to have to try to keep me on track because, you know, what's happening is there's so much attempted disinformation because they're trying to forget the largest espionage, Imran Awan espionage scandal with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Oh, by the way, Broward County, isn't that Debbie Wasserman Schultz's area? I mean, she is like always involved in these things, you know. How is it that's... Plus, they've now, her case is reopened and they've given it credence to go forward. So as we're looking at the 2018 elections, we're finally beginning to get a lawsuit against the DNC for rigging the primaries, which everyone knows happened. Everyone witnessed it 17 times. Where was Bernie? Anyway, don't get me started on that. Now, we have a question. We have a question from Charles. Charles wants to understand this DACA thing. Now, it's easy to misunderstand this. Matter of fact,
well, wait a minute. Before you do that, let's just tee up the question,
okay,
if you don't mind.
Please.
And thanks, Charles. For those of us that haven't had time to understand, this would be, please point me to a discussion you may have regarding exactly what DACA is. I always thought it was an Obama executive order, yet I read that a federal judge just ruled Trump is not permitted to rescind this order. Since when is a current president not permitted to rescind a former president's executive order? Or is it that DACA is not actually an Obama executive order? I'm very confused with all this. Can you help?
Betsy, that is such a good question. Thank you, Charles. The deal is we have written about this, and we're the only ones who actually pointed out that it was 10.5 million DACA, not 800,000 or 700,000. Because their children, them, and their illegal parents who brought them into the country are all part of this. And that doesn't count others who came as chain migration through visitation, you know, visas and stuff. So it's very complicated. So what you're going to read in the newspaper right now, that's how old I am. What you're going to read in the news right now is that a Supreme Court said no to Trump stopping DACA. You are correct, Charles. No court in the land, not even the Supreme Court, can say that. And you are right. It is not an act of Congress because Congress determines immigration law and only Congress. And they won't even look at it. Trump is making fun of them right now with his tweets saying they won't even talk about it. Where did they go? DACA people, dreamer lovers, where are you? Anybody? Hello? Is there a Democrat anywhere in Congress that wants to talk about that? No, not one. Now, why is that? They want illegal voters who all assume that the Democrats are for them because they say they are publicly. But the Democrats didn't get the dreamer ideas passed through with Schumer before when he put them forth in Congress under Obama. So what is happening here is very complicated.
Well, wait a
It was not an executive order. Okay, go ahead.
It's like what they do is they hold the sword of Damocles over the illegals. They promise them, oh yeah, we're going to get you legal and everything's going to be fine. And they think they're going to live the American dream. Who wouldn't want to live the American dream? But at any time, those Democrats can drop that sword on them and sorry, you're illegal. And they use that against them. It's a form of group blackmail.
Yeah, they tried to say Trump was wrong by saying that they didn't get it passed before when they had a Democratic House and Senate and Obama. Well, when it was first put forward, that was true, and so Trump was correct. Later, it wasn't. Yes, there were changes. And so it's all about having the majority of Democrats in the Senate and the House. That's what controls the Congress. So what they want is to say, oh, dreamers and illegals. By the way, we are the only ones that named the true amount, and it's now coming out, 10.5 million. And now what do you see in all their signs? 11 million dreamers must stay or we will do what? They've even threatened to hurt people and much worse things I'm not even going to say on the air. But there have been threats because we won't allow criminals who came into this country under criminal pretense, stayed here criminally, didn't go get a job in the army, because they're allowing any dreamer who went to the army and served a full 3 terms and came out with an honorable discharge to become a citizen. Rightfully so. That makes sense. So there are some things that Trump would do to make it a path for them. But let's go back to Charles's question. Charles, it was not an executive order that this caused this. It was a memorandum of the president written to the Homeland Security to stop deportation of these illegals. Now, mind you, they weren't deporting many, but also, mind you, Obama has deported more illegals than any of the past 4 presidents. So he was a big deporter of illegals. Don't think for 1 minute that he was ever on their side. He just needed their votes. So also look at what he did with MS-13. And allowing the people from El Salvador to come here under the pretense of an earthquake, when in fact they sent all of their illegals up here, all of their criminals, their violent criminals. That's who we get. That's why Mexico doesn't want a border. So going back to DACA, it was a memorandum. It's not even legal. What it was an illegal order to Homeland Security to not do what the law says to do. And this happened after Obama twice tried to put it into Congress and get it passed for the Dreamers and for DACA, and for basically what he was headed for was what I have told you and no one else has told you, and you will someday hear, amnesty for 20 million illegals. We're talking 20 million. And the estimates that they have are based upon a census, okay? U.S. Census. They don't even ask if there's illegals in the home. And do you think it's going to be put onto the census, whether they are? So in a sanctuary state like California, do you think the census is accurate? Do you think the statistics they have are accurate? No, they're not even close. But there's ways to arrive at that because many of them get a license or they get a California ID. And those things have been tracked. And they're tracked now because we're looking into how can we actually not allow illegals to vote this time. In Pennsylvania, 100,000 illegals are registered to vote in 2018. Registered to vote. And the new gerrymandering and rigging done by Eric Holder and Barack Obama, which they said was going to be their number one thing they were going to do with OFA, Organizing for Action, was to gerrymander as many states as they could so that they could have a better turnout for the election. So DACA is illegal. It was always illegal. It went to court. It failed over and over again to get any support of the court. Now, how is it that Trump gets bashed into court now? That's because liberal federal districts, which we need to go after, and we need to disassemble them, we need to break them apart, make stupid judgments based upon Trump's tweets? How is that evidence? How is a Trump tweet evidence for a Ninth Circuit Court judge which previously said he could not do what Obama did, which is limit the amount of illegals and refugees and people coming from countries that have been determined by the president to be national security issues, which would be countries that Obama bombed, all 7 of them. He bombed them, then he didn't allow the people to come here. Trump tried to do that, told by the courts 3 times no, and then told by the higher courts yes. So he's being told no for DACA now at the lower courts. He asked the Supreme Court to look at it, and they said no. The reason they didn't look at it is they have no authority. They do not make law. They interpret law. They don't enforce law.
And it wasn't a law. But look, I want to hold off. I want to ask you something. What if Trump, when the March deadline comes and, that's it. The memo's over. Everything's done. Who is going to tell Trump? What, is the federal court going to raise an army or some kind of enforcement agency to enforce the president not following a memo that was given by another president? Have they thought this out all the way till the end?
No, they have not. And this happened on the other cases like this, exactly the same. You're right, absolutely right, Betsy. So what's going to happen is it's going to be back and forth, and maybe Homeland Security will say, forget you, circuit court judge, federal, I don't care if you're a federal judge.
They answer to Trump.
You are a political appointee. You might not even been a lawyer, a judge. You might not even be on the bar. You might not be anything but a secretary. And you are going to determine something that's going to rule and put an injunction on a president's order? No. It ends March 5th. It doesn't matter what a judge or anybody else says.
That's right. So y'all go.
It ends because there was a termination date on it. There had to be, or it wouldn't have made any sense. It would have been amnesty.
Yes.
And he can't give amnesty.
Yes.
Only the Congress can give amnesty. This is so stupid. Only the Congress can pass laws concerning immigration.
And the federal court can't do jack.
Does anyone want to talk about DACA? How about the Dreamers, Schumer, Pelosi, anybody?
Oh,
Nobody.
Sorry. We're all wound up about this because what I see is just these globalists really haven't thought about their end game.
Trump wanted to mix it all together, do a deal where it came out right, where they kept the law and allowed Congress to pass a law that would then encompass these questions. Congress isn't even discussing the question, let alone coming up with, for the first time ever, something that would work. Schumer's previous Dreamer Act, which failed, is a piece of junk. It was garbage. It didn't have any border security, didn't have any wall, didn't have any stopping chain migration, didn't stop the lottery, didn't stop the illegals that brought the Dreamers into this country. I mean, how can we give amnesty or a path to citizenship? See, difference. Obama, amnesty. Trump, path to citizenship. You get arrested, you're out. Okay? Path to citizenship without any misdemeanors or felonies, or else you're out, and you have to be a citizen. You have to be productive. You can't be on the dole, so on and so forth. That does not break his promises to his base. What it does is it expands his understanding of the insanity of the system. He has been passed a poison goblet and told to drink. People say, drink or don't drink. No, he can't let anybody drink it. He's got to stop the whole thing. It's like Freddie Mac's, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac's. That was an Obama slush fund of billions, tens of billions of dollars that he slushed into the non-government organizations, also supported by the Tides Foundation, George Soros. And that was nothing more than a scam. And it was proven a scam, and yet he continued to do it to the end of his day. Now what's Trump going to do? Don't take it before the Congress. Don't have an investigation. Just write it out of existence. And that's what he needs to do. He just talked at CPAC. What did he say? 7 more years. What have we said from the beginning? Yep, this is a 2-termer. So, Charles, thank you for asking the question. No, a lower court cannot overrule the president, especially when the president is simply undoing a very bad memorandum written by a very bad previous president. So you are correct. And yes, we're all sick of this. And the Supreme Court, they didn't explain their actions because their action was political. They could have taken it up and they could have said, we don't have to deliberate. This is the law. It's just like our previous deliberations on the immigration, which took us 15 seconds to say, it's the law. Something that Obama threw out the window when his lawlessness and the Chicago mob and the Hillary Clinton, Hugh Rodham Clinton was one of the chief mob bosses of Chicago. Would we expect anything different from what is going on in D.C. than is what is going on? So don't be too confused about DACA. But if you want to get the truth, you're only going to get it from our articles, because it was shocking to the entire conclave, to Betsy, to myself, to find out the truth of the matter is that there are 20 million illegal aliens in this country. Most of them, here's the deal. If you just took the percentage of working DACA dreamers and gave those jobs to America, there would be no unemployment in America. If you took the money spent on the DACA dreamers as they were coming up through American schools and you gave that money to veterans, you wouldn't have veterans in the poorest condition that they've ever been in American history. What we do to our veterans is a sin. I'm a veteran. I know. I was in those hospitals. So what we need is to have faith that Trump fighting this out one-on-one, and do not be surprised that our fellow alternative media news sites go down. Betsy, you might want to say something to close this discussion.
Well,
because
yes.
With that, but wait a second. Don't be surprised when they go down. This is a war, folks. We said it from the beginning. We're in this with our blood and our lives. This is our human capital. And people are going to fall to the wayside because they haven't prepared for it. And Betsy's going to tell you how to prepare for it again. But with the DACA dreamers, and with their parents and their children and the whole mess, Trump is the only one addressing that. He had a solution he was going to move towards with the deal, but none of them will do the deal at the table. So, Charles, I'm so sorry, because I got confused with all of it. And I won't even look at it, because I won't give any credence to one of those federal judges until we take them all down. Those federal judges, district and appellate court judges, appeal court judges out in the states, have no authority over us, and neither does the FBI. Only U.S. Marshals, and that's because they work underneath sheriffs in every county. They don't have any authority, and we're going to bust this open, and we're going to put Trump in charge as the sheriff, and he's going to try these people in Washington, D.C., and we're going to take the treasonous people that we can consider them to be war criminals and put them in Gitmo. And, sorry to have to say it, all of the DACA dreamers who are criminals need to be treated like the criminals they are.